We are standing on the summit of Mauna Kea on the island of Hawaii. At sunset, the mountain casts a long shadow onto our atmosphere. On this night, the full moon rose into the shadow. As the moon revolves around Earth, it can come between us and more distant worlds, creating eclipses. The Earth revolves around the Sun. From our vantage point on Earth, the Sun appears to move through the constellations. The path along which the Sun travels is called the ecliptic. In their motions around the Sun, the planets also move along the ecliptic. In its monthly motion around Earth, the Moon moves along a similar path, but one tilted off the ecliptic. The Moon usually misses the Sun or planets, passing above or below them, but on rare occasions, it can meet up with another world. When the Moon meets a planet, it can hide the planet in what we call an occultation. As the Moon rises, look carefully at its edge. The Moon is going to hide Venus. This is the view through a telescope. After an hour or so, Venus reappears from behind the opposite edge of the Moon. At all such events, it is the fast-moving Moon that covers, then uncovers the planet. This time the Moon has met Saturn. You can see Saturn here below the Moon, as the Moon slowly gets closer to Saturn. This rare occultation of Saturn is even more intriguing when seen through a telescope, revealing Saturn's rings. The Moon eventually obscures Saturn, rings and all. When the Moon is opposite the Sun, the side of the Moon we see is fully lit. If the full Moon then enters Earth's shadow, we see an eclipse of the Moon. Lunar eclipses don't happen at every full moon. Most months, the Moon's tilted orbit takes it above or below Earth's shadow. But at least twice a year, the full Moon enters part of our planet's shadow. Every 18 months or so, the full Moon enters Earth's dark shadow completely. The half of the planet where it is night can see a total eclipse of the Moon. As the Moon enters the shadow, the eclipse begins, with our shadow engulfing more of the Moon until totality begins. Even with the Moon totally eclipsed, it is still visible, glowing red. Sunlight passing through our atmosphere is still able to reach the Moon, but only the red light. Blue light is scattered by our atmosphere, but longer red wavelengths are bent into the shadow. We are seeing the Moon lit by all the sunrises and sunsets around our planet. As the Moon emerges from Earth's shadow, its disk returns to the normal brilliance of a full moon. That was a simulated view as seen from space. This is the Uyuni Salt Flat in Bolivia, South America. Tonight, the full moon will turn red as we experience a total lunar eclipse captured in a time-lapse sequence. As the sun sets in the west, the full moon rises exactly opposite the sun in the east. Sunset color is unusual, not because of the eclipse, but from a volcanic eruption on the other side of the world a few months before. Volcanic debris high in our atmosphere tints the twilight sky red and purple. After twilight ends and night begins, the stars are still hard to see, even from this remote site far from city lights. The full moon is still so bright, its light makes the night sky blue, just as the sun does by day, making it hard to see all but the brightest stars. Ice crystals in passing clouds briefly create a ring around the moon, a lunar halo, an interesting sight, but the clouds threaten to spoil our view of the eclipse. As we can now see, the disk of the moon has begun to enter Earth's shadow. The eclipse is underway. With the moon now completely in shadow, the moon turns red. With its lights dimmed, the stars and the spectacular Milky Way appears. After an hour of totality, the moon begins to emerge from Earth's shadow. Bright moonlight once again fills the sky. The Milky Way fades and the clouds become visible again in the moonlight. An eclipse of the moon can last up to 3 hours or more and can create a dramatic change in the night sky. With the eclipse over, the full moon sinks into the west. In the east, the sky reddens with twilight, signaling the oncoming dawn. As the moon sets in the west, the sun rises opposite the moon in the east. We were able to witness in a few minutes what actually took many hours to unfold in the South American sky. As beautiful as eclipses of the moon can be, eclipses of the sun are even more dramatic. They happen when the new moon blocks the sun. Unlike lunar eclipses, observing a solar eclipse requires special filters to dim the sun's blinding light to safely watch the progress of the dark moon cross the disk of the sun. On this day, however, the moon didn't completely block the sun. This was just a partial eclipse. Throughout history, eclipses have been part of the lore and legends of people around the world. Eclipses were both exciting and terrifying. How could they explain the sun and moon disappearing? In Korea, people thought eclipses were caused by the fire dog from the Black Country swallowing the moon or sun. In Chinese folklore, a great dragon appears to eat the sun. People set off firecrackers and sounded drums and gongs, all to drive off the dragon or the fire dome. It always worked. The sun and moon always return to the sky. In a popular Korean painting titled 일월 오봉도, the sun and moon are accurately drawn the same size. Although the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, it appears the same size as the moon in our sky because it is 400 times farther away. The moon orbits Earth in an ellipse, moving closer to and away from us. The moon's disk grows and shrinks slightly. If an eclipse occurs when the moon is closest to Earth, we see a total solar eclipse. But if the moon is farthest from Earth, it can't completely cover the sun. At mid-eclipse, a ring of light remains. This is called an annular eclipse. Although most of the sun is eclipsed, the ring that remains is still so bright, eclipse glasses must be used during the entire eclipse. Through eclipse glasses, we see the dark disk of the moon moving across the sun. The sun changes from a thin crescent of brilliant light into a complete circle, a so-called ring of fire. During an annular eclipse, as the eclipse reaches its maximum, the daytime sky dims to a strangely dark, deep blue. If the eclipse occurs when the sun rises or sets, or when it is in the thick clouds, the eclipse can sometimes be observed, carefully, without solar glasses. When the moon is large enough to cover the sun completely, we see a total solar eclipse, the most spectacular sight in the sky. It begins with the moon taking a small bite out of the sun, one that grows larger over an hour during the partial eclipse. Only when the sun is entirely covered by the moon, during totality, is it now safe to remove any solar filters or glasses and look at the eclipse with unaided eyes. The final rays of sunlight peek through the valleys on the edge of the moon, creating the effect known as the diamond ring. At this eclipse, two lunar valleys created a double diamond ring. In just moments, day turns to deep twilight. Bright stars appear. The temperature drops by a few degrees, so you not only see the eclipse, you feel it. Surrounding the black disk of the moon is the sun's atmosphere, the corona. It is made of gas at a temperature of millions of degrees. Streamers from the corona flow away from the sun to create a solar wind that blows across space. We can see the corona from Earth only during an eclipse. The pink regions are solar prominences. These are towering flames of hydrogen trapped in magnetic fields twisting up from the sun's surface. Like the corona, They can be seen with unaided eyes only when the moon blocks the bright disk of the sun. Enjoy the rare sight. In just minutes, it will be over. All too soon, the motion of the moon ends totality with an explosion of sunlight, a brilliant diamond ring on the other side of the moon. The pink prominences, pearly white corona, and the dark eclipse sky all disappear as night turns to day again. In 1919, astronomer Arthur Eddington led expeditions to test Albert Einstein's new theory of relativity. A long eclipse lasting nearly 7 minutes allowed them to photograph the stars around the sun as the sky darkened. When compared to pictures taken at night of the same area, they saw the stars had shifted positions during the eclipse. Their light had been bent by the sun's gravity. The amount matched what Einstein had predicted. They had proven Einstein right, making him instantly famous as an icon of science. Seen from space, this simulation shows how the moon casts a dark, narrow shadow onto the Earth. Around it is a larger but lighter shadow. In this area, people see just a partial solar eclipse. To see a total eclipse, you must be within the central shadow. It traces a path that can cross half the globe, but might be only 100 miles wide. The shadow travels up to 2,000 miles per hour. So from any one place, the moon's shadow will create a total eclipse lasting mere minutes. But those are minutes you'll never forget. This is the actual view from Wyoming during the total solar eclipse in 2017. While the day sky appears a little darker than usual, there's no obvious sign the eclipse is happening. But put on eclipse glasses, and you can see that most of the sun is already gone. As the sun shrinks to a thin crescent, the day gets darker and the sky turns to an unearthly steely blue. Something very unusual is about to happen. As the sky darkens more, watch as the colors of a 360-degree sunset appear around us along the horizon. Then suddenly, the moon's shadow rushes in. As it engulfs us, totality begins. In seconds, day has turned to night, with the sun now reduced to a black hole in the sky. Just as quickly, the moon's shadow races on, ending totality with a burst of sunlight from behind the moon. The sun returns, and the day brightens to its familiar bright blue. It was over so quickly and looked so alien, you are left to wonder if what you just saw was real. Many people are moved to tears. Anyone who sees a total eclipse immediately wonders, when can I see one again? The moon's shadow will cross North America on April 8, 2024, bringing totality to millions of people. After that, the next total eclipse is in August 2026, when the lunar shadow sweeps across Greenland, Iceland, and Spain. A year later, in August 2027, the shadow crosses Africa and the Middle East. And in July 2028, Australia and New Zealand are the destinations for eclipse chasers, and Australia again in 2030. While a total solar eclipse occurs almost every year, it can be seen only from along a narrow and often remote path. If you remain in one place and wait for a total eclipse to come to you, you will wait an average of 400 years between eclipses. But witness one total eclipse of the sun, and you'll be inspired to travel to the ends of the earth to see another. to experience the moments of wonder the universe has to offer.